Cartoon Feelings.
Thank you.
Hi, Ira. I'm Caitlin Cadieux, an animator and illustrator.
All right, and I'm Ira Marcks. I write and draw comics, and this is the bottled part of the banter, right? This is us reading off a script.
It's pre-made, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, hey, Ira, didn't see you there. I'm an animator and illustrator, by the way.
And this is our podcast about the mysterious and magical process of bringing cartoon stories to life. If you're enjoying the show, you can rate us on Apple Reviews. We'd love to hear your kind words. If you want to write us an email about your feelings or anything you want, you can send us an email at cartoonfeelingspodcast@gmail.com. And all new and exciting, we now have a Patreon. Isn't that true?
You can give us $1 to several more dollars for content. There's content involved. It's not just a unilateral, you give us money for nothing. There's something. You get something for that.
And what do you get?
Bonus episode. I think there's one right now, I believe.
Yeah, well, it depends when you're listening to this. There's at least one.
That's true. There will always be at least one.
Yeah.
We pledge this to you now.
In fact, there's probably even two, I would say, at this point.
Oh,
so
okay.
if you're excited
Challenge
to know more about the Haunted Mansion, Disney's Haunted Mansion, and you're excited to know more about the Haunted Mansion inside and outside via
On
Caitlin
the
and
rails.
I. Yeah.
We get really on the rails on that one.
And I think we have some other episodes about like scary kid stories, and who knows where we'll go from there. So get on board if you want to support the show and get some extra stuff. All right, Caitlin.
Yes.
What's on today's agenda?
Hello. Well, I'm checking my notes.
Yeah.
Oh, today we're talking about Serendipity, a 2001 American romantic comedy film directed by Peter. No, it's not that one. We're talking about Serendipity, and if you're cool, you know that Serendipity is a pink dragon. I think we're sort of talking about. Well, we're talking about a lot of things. Serendipity is a lot of things to a lot of people. There's books, there's film, and anime, and other probably.
Right.
And we have a special guest today. With us as well to discuss.
She floated.
Just that.
She floated up to our paradise island in a perfectly round egg,
hatched into our podcast,
and now she emerges fully formed. Her flippers stepping out onto the soft sands,
speaking perfect English.
We have with us today Lisa Naffziger.
Hello. Yes, it's true. I floated here all the way to Paradise Island. I'm the first of my kind.
Wow, that's awesome.
But not
Am
the
I
last,
a pink
hopefully.
dragon or a pink dinosaur? I feel like the dub kind of debated that back and forth. So, or the theme song's different
I feel a little
than the movie.
cheated by that.
I don't know. It's whatever.
Dragon. It said the cover art says dragon. Like, come on, you got to commit.
All right. Okay. Good God, it's unraveling so quick. I have so many questions about not only what they're trying to say with this movie, but I'm very curious to see how young minds respond to this, because this movie is very new to me, but other aspects of this narrative are not, and we'll get there. But first, Lisa, when I asked you to be on the show, I was like, can you pick a movie with some creatures in it, because you're like a monster wrangler, I feel like.
Oh, definitely.
In your art, right?
Yeah, this one was so nostalgic for me, and it probably piqued some of my monster interest, or at least like the colorful end of things. I love Godzilla, I love Gamera and all different things, but this one is really special because it's bright and pink. I've got a lot of Lisa Frank nostalgia too, so I feel like that married those two things together pretty well. And I was excited when you reached out to me because this whole time, Caitlin, I think that you're pronouncing your last name Cadieux, like a Japanese giant
on Twitter
monster.
It has been. Mm-hmm. When I realized that it was very close to my last name, Cadieux, I felt so powerful. And so I have just become very attached to that.
Your identity finally revealed itself.
Excellent.
And I'm rather small, so I feel like it encapsulates that energy.
Yeah, it's a great irony that empowers you even more. Okay, Lisa, maybe you could just give us a little bit of a quick rundown on your kind of monster experience, because I've been following you for a while, and I'm in awe of your ability to draw monsters, first of all, and draw them on a very regimented routine. Like I know if I open Twitter, I'm going to see one of Lisa's monsters, I feel like.
I try to stay active.
Actually, that's kind of a question, just because this is a bit of a show for and by cartoonists. How do you like keep that schedule going in your life? Like, what does it take to just draw?
What is
a
your
monster
secret?
every day? Yeah, what's the friggin' secret?
Help. Help us.
Yeah, I want it to be this like super magical experience where I'm like, oh, I'm like super task oriented and I get everything done on time. Actually, I'm just like so anxious that I do all of my drawings for a drawing challenge beforehand so then I can post regularly.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, it's part of the illusion.
The truth comes out.
Right, because I'm like just
Okay.
as erratic or like starved for ideas as anybody else. But I think I try to like amass a collection of things before I start posting them. Or sometimes it's fun when everybody's doing a drawing challenge together because then I'm excited that we're all going to draw the same thing. And there's a little bit of accountability to that, I guess. Like, oh, they're expecting me to post this thing today. But sometimes, yeah, it's just I've harvested all of my goofy sketches and then now it's time to finally show them.
So, like, how many will you do? Like a month's worth at a time or something?
I'll at least sketch out that many. And I think maybe some of it comes from my experience as a comic artist too, like because you have to draw every single panel of every single page and you're used to having to like build everything up slowly and gather it together. So I think that's my approach to illustration as well. I'm definitely not the kind of person who can like spend months on one single painting or like a single image. I don't know if it's my attention span, but I like to make something, put it out there, and then do another one.
Yeah, totally. I feel like I relate to comics in that kind of way as well. There's like, at a certain point, you're overdoing it, and it just needs to go out there. And then in comics, like align with that urge. Okay, now monster-wise, I would say I'm not. Caitlin, you're better versed maybe than me in like monster lore. I'm not
Almost
sure.
certainly, Ira.
Okay, so I'm just kind of curious. Are you, Lisa? All the monsters you're drawing, are you making some of them up, or are they all like in the Godzilla, like Cadieux or whatever universe?
I like to do ones that people suggest to me. So they usually come from some existing franchise. Like some of them are more recognizable when
Right.
it's from a Godzilla movie, but it's been very educational to be on Twitter and be like, hey, somebody tell me one of these things that I haven't drawn yet. And there's always somebody who has like some obscure Ultraman episode, or there's a show that I've never heard of, and I was like, oh, this sounds fun. So I think it started as a drawing challenge where I would do like a month's worth at a time, and then I was always looking for more, and then people would give me suggestions and reveal more of them to me. I haven't seen most of the shows that these things come from. Fake fan over here,
okay.
But I do like to learn about them. It's cool when people find something really obscure.
Yeah, I feel like that's legitimate fandom these days. Is like I would happily admit to have not reading a lot of books that I willingly talk about, like reading part of them or something. I feel like, especially with character design stuff, it's okay to like just be a fan of the aesthetic, right? Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Definitely.
not.
No.
I
Whoa.
do know, but I think like people. I wouldn't say that I don't draw a ton of monsters and like post them exclusively, and not nearly with this amount of discipline and consistency. Very admirable, regardless of
Thank you.
doing them all in advance or not. But that's like one of the things that I really like. I have a lot of Godzilla doodles. That's
Yeah.
kind of one of my go-to things when I don't know what to draw. I feel like it's like a Guillermo del Toro thing. Like if you're into that, you're into it so much. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have an encyclopedic knowledge of every single, like the different eras of the Godzilla films and stuff. Like I don't have enough room in my brain
Right.
for all that.
You're
Like,
always
I'm like,
excited to look at a new lizard, right? You know,
Yeah.
somebody shows you like, hey, check this one out. It's like, whoa, that's neat. Feels
But it's like the hardest part is-
playground days when somebody has a new toy.
yeah, you're like, well, I want to see a fight. So if there's too much talking in the
Right.
film, I'm like,
Are there, okay, I can ask both of y'all this. I'm like, I guess I really don't ever draw monsters, even though I like to think that I would. I tend to just draw people because that's usually like what the job is. So I'm really curious, because this happens with Pokemon, when you look at like an array of Pokemon, certain ones draw your eye because of the design style. You're like, I would like to draw that, is how I always think. So with monsters, are there certain design styles, like anatomy arrangements, that appeal to you more than others, or like ones you find easier to do? Does that ever
I have
come
the
up?
ones that I definitely avoid, and I feel like it's the ones everybody's suggesting are like, oh, I've got this one that's like a crazy mecha, or it's got tons and tons of little transformer pieces in it. I was like, oh, I wanted to go back to it just looking like a dinosaur because there are more organic shapes to do, and I don't have to remember like what components go where. And we all know the internet. If I don't put the right pieces in place, I'll get some DM that's just like, hey, you forgot the buzzsaw on this one's chest. And I'm like, sorry, I've never seen this thing before.
Yeah, the thing I shouldn't have to apologize for, I'm apologizing for. I guess that makes a lot of sense. The tech side, because the thing that sprung to my mind first when you talked about kind of like mecha designs that are overly complicated where you can't really get a sense of them is like the Michael Bay Transformers movies. Like when you look at those designs, they're illegible to the point where you're like, I will never remember who's who. And I think that can apply in the monster-y realm as well.
Yes, 100%. Right? There do be a lot of them.
Caitlin, do you have a go-to monster? Like, I know you're just like, you just love Godzilla.
Yeah, this is super generic, I think, but King Ghidorah or Ghidorah.
Yeah.
He's the best. He's so fucking cool. And like, so I don't think the most recent like modern Godzilla movies are that good as films. But like when I went to ones? Yeah. When I went to New Zealand with my dad, you know this well. I've mentioned it a bunch of times on the podcast, but like we were there to like do fun, stuff. I was there for like speaking at a conference, and then we did like touristy stuff, like Lord of the Rings stuff, because that was our thing. But I did specifically make him set aside an evening to go see. I think it was King of the Monsters, and just like the only IMAX theater in all of New Zealand, because I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And he like really humored me for that.
Yeah.
But it's like, you just got to see those. You just got to see them. You got to see them like that. It's cool as hell. It's really cool.
It's like seeing a wrestling match, kind of.
Yeah.
At that stage, right?
I don't know. There's just nothing else like it.
I was at least interested in seeing like the updated designs for them, because you're so used to them being rubber suits that I was like, oh, what will they do when they can do King Ghidorah as like a CG monster? Can they make him like move even more, like all the heads individually, or give them unique expressions? So that was cool.
Yeah.
Movies and the plot, I don't know. I don't remember what happened. I just know that I like to look at the lizards.
It's like people are there. Some of them die, but I will not pretend that I don't get hyped up when I see a trailer for those. And the soundtracks are so good.
Right.
Consistently.
That's true.
Oh, yeah. Didn't they get, I'm going to get the wrong band now. Fake fan. Was it from System of a Down?
Zach
Surge,
Delarocha or something?
What's his name? I don't know.
Tankian.
Not the singer.
Tankian. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, you might be right about that.
Oh, I'm like saying Rage Against the Machine. Not that anyone cares when I get shit wrong on the show.
They're all the same band, actually.
It was pretty rad.
This podcast is fact, but it kicked ass. It was awesome.
Rage Against the Machine is like in the Matthew Broderick Godzilla. Maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Oh God. Well, I don't know if you'll appreciate this, Lisa. Maybe you will. But that's how you know that I'm into this shit, is when I made my mom take me out of a Girl Scout meeting when I was like 7 years old so I could go see that movie in the theater. I was like, I'm out. I have a date with destiny. And apparently that movie's not that good. I don't know, because I haven't really seen it with an adult brain. But that was my priority back then.
Right.
I think
it holds up, maybe. I don't know. Some of it's goofy, some of it's just good fun. The marketing campaign for that movie was crazy. I remember seeing it everywhere. Like,
so
they
cool.
had brand deals with everybody with just like the foot stomping down on something. I'm like, that's so neat.
Yeah, you're like, yes, I want that.
Right. I mean, that's all you need to accomplish with that, right? I feel like the newer movies still get caught in the trap of like trying to tell the human story, when like that's really not the appeal. Is if there's some sort of crossover audience, they're like, I like human drama with a little bit of monster. Like, that's not an audience.
Hey, like, skip. I want to see them punch each other.
Right.
Okay. So let's track it back. We've talked about kind of the battle-y style monsters. Let's talk about the softer, more gentler,
the rounder serendipity type monsters.
So Lisa,
definitely. There's a place in my heart for that.
Okay, let's dig deep into that heart. Tell us the story of, what this movie kind of means to you, and why it was like your pick for what to talk about here today.
I imagine it was probably some like bargain bin CVS VHS tape that my dad's like, it's got a dinosaur on it. I think Lisa will like it. Because he brought home Godzilla movies for the same reason. But I loved it. It was so colorful and fun. The songs really slap. Forgot about that. I was jamming, listening to it this time around again. But I think it was cool too to see like the little kid and monster relationship. I think that's a storyline that I've always really enjoyed. Not just like, oh, the monsters are something that we get to watch as a spectacle like Godzilla, but like this is this kid's friend. And I think I really wanted either to be Serendipity and to have a little buddy to go with me, or Serendipity could be my friend. That would be way cool.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question about the plot? This isn't a spoiler because it happens at the beginning. Do his parents die?
I was gonna bring that up. I think they're dead because
the end of this movie, I am spoiling it now all the way to the end. It's like, I'm gonna stay here forever and just live my life. And I'm like, are your parents dead? Or are they out there? Like, where's my son?
And rewatching it, I feel like I remember it differently. I'm like, no, they were like separated and they went back on the boat, right? And
That's
I'm like,
what I thought.
The last thing we see of them is them sliding down the iceberg. So I think they're gone.
But there is no mourning period for Bobby, really.
Yeah, there's no trauma
he
in
moves
this.
on pretty quick.
The like emotional range of Serendipity, The Pink Dragon, the movie, is like happy, slightly veering into confused, but never beyond. Like, I guess there's a sad moment or two, but it quickly jumps back to like the steel drum, like
it's very slice
vibe.
of life. Like a lot of the tension is like islander conflict between each other. Like you broke a law.
What I want to just explain to people that don't know quite what we're talking about. Maybe they've like Googled Serendipity, found
the 2001 romantic comedy film,
and then opened another tab, saved that for later, and then added Pink
sat there
Dragon
and watched
to
that
it.
one.
So this is actually an anime series from 1983. It aired for about a year, and then it was like condensed, I guess, into what becomes like a 92-minute video that arrived in young Lisa's hands around, well, I mean, I don't think she got it in 1990, but that's when it was originally released. So if you out there, audience, if you're listening out there and you're like, I kind of know what they're talking about, which is how I felt and how my wife Maura felt, it's probably because you found this random VHS and it's a condensed version of a bigger story. Has anybody gone through and watched, Lisa? Have you gone back and watched any of the 26 series? Original episodes?
I wonder if they're all on YouTube somewhere. It was crazy to me to find out that it wasn't just a movie, because some of it, I mean, it does feel episodic.
Yes, I found that out.
Now that I think of it, but as a little kid, I was convinced it was just one movie. So that would be cool to find out.
I wonder if the episodes were like localized to English, because I believe they were in other languages, that the series was aired in other countries, but they might not have the episodes in full English. They might have just done the movie.
Oh, that's
was the version that you watched on YouTube the one that like only worked in one earbud or something? There was like this horrible like popping mono one. It
was not very high quality. The Blu-ray, the 4K masters of this film have been lost.
Lost to time.
Lost to Paradise Island.
It's true, but it in some ways, you know, when you look at the YouTube comments, I feel like it had like 100K views or something. There's like a lot of nostalgia for this. And the books. I want to talk about the books a little bit before we get too deep down the movie rabbit hole. Because when Lisa was like, oh, Serendipity, the movie, I was like, I don't know what this movie thing is. But I know these friggin' books, and I friggin' love them. Okay, listeners. There's a book series from the 70s. It began in 1973.
Do I have your attention now?
The first book is called Serendipity. They're by Stephen Cosgrove, illustrated by Robin James. Are they married? Hard to tell. On the back of the book covers, they look like
married. They look so married in that
Lisa,
picture.
do they look married to you?
Ooh, that's some close proximity and like matching clothing. I think so.
Yeah.
It's just, they're like in the woods. Like I assume that's their yard. I don't know.
Let's say they're in
marital
some sort
yard
of,
that they own together.
Like a key party scenario. It is the 70s.
That's true.
Okay, so Robin James and Stephen Cosgrove together in marital bliss, they put out about 70 of these kind of morality tales, verging on kind of like they almost feel like churchy books in a way.
Yes.
And I'm holding in my hands 3 of the ones I own. The first one, Serendipity, I do not own, sadly enough. But I do have Flutterby, about a flying horse. I have Grandpa Lop, about an old rabbit. Very wise.
Love him. Beautiful.
And then I have Morgan Mine, about a unicorn and a little girl who finds the unicorn and befriends it. Probably brushes her hair at some point as well.
Foundational.
I remember the
girl's got great
Pegasus
bangs.
one. That's crazy. It's like dusting off some cobwebs in my brain.
Yeah,
I think
so
we might
did
have had
you
that
have any-
one.
Okay. So there's 70 of them, right? I mean,
There's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and the cool thing with these is you can hear it. They're floppy and they're cheap. I think there was a thing with Stephen Cosgrove where I'm probably kind of making this up, but it seems like it might be true. A lot of children's books were very expensive, and I think he wanted to have like a lower price point with his, so thus they were published in like a kind of loose, almost comic booky form, because they feel unconventional. Like they don't look like something you'd get at like a whatever bookstores existed in the 80s. Right?
I wasn't there for that. But
Yeah.
yes.
I don't know. Me neither.
You're right,
really.
though. They almost look like that, like chapter book format, right? Like when you graduate from like the durable cardboard wide illustration books, like you go to that next.
Well, and they
but
kind
they
of
still
are
have
like that
those
because-
illustrations, don't they? Yeah.
And it's like
Yep.
the illustration is always on the right page, and on
Yeah.
the left page there's about a paragraph, 2 paragraphs of text. So it's not. It is like it's slightly more complex.
Right.
It's for, I don't know, mature 7 to 8-year-old readers, probably, if I had to guess.
And you can very much see that you can see the influence of these in culture, whether this survived like culturally or not. So like when you're talking about Lisa Frank, damn it, I just freaking broke the spine of this.
No,
I've never
Morgan Mine.
I just heard the glue crack. But I this works because I want to show Lisa, like this is very very Lisa Frank pose.
Oh, yeah,
right, of this
definitely.
unicorn.
The blueprint.
Like the Yes, exactly. Like I feel like a lot of Robin James' illustration style continues on to be like My Little Pony for sure.
Yeah, it's
right?
the eyes. Like
Yeah.
all of her illustrations and these books. I guess some credit has to go to Stephen Cosgrove for this, but they're all about animals, and all the animals have like giant mooning eyes full of stars and lights. Like
Yeah.
they're just massive,
Definitely
and like
a signature.
luscious eyelashes.
Yeah.
Especially the horses. They give like intense My Little Pony vibes.
And thematically, all the books are just very simple morality tales, like kind of Aesop's fable type of. Okay, so Serendipity is described as the story is know who you really are, and it will bring you happiness. It's basically like a fortune cookie type of message, right? And then I guess you could condense theoretically each one of these books into a simple like, make sure you listen to old people. They have things to say. Or unicorns are great. And if you find one, spend time with it.
Yeah, my favorite one, I revisited it because just to say this, my experience was that when we saw this email, I got very excited because I also had a VHS copy of this movie when I was a child and watched it over and over again and loved this movie. So I was like, I don't really know a lot about this, but I'm going to research it. And I was like, I know everything about this and I can't wait to rewatch it. So that was great. And I also had these books, and the Flutterby one I revisited. That's the Pegasus one. And it's basically about a Pegasus that flies around with butterflies. And at the end, it's like, if you talk shit, like do it to butterflies, because like when they pass it on, they will just mess it up and it'll be wrong. I honestly don't know what the takeaway is supposed to be, but it's like, if you feel like gossiping, tell it to butterflies because they'll get it wrong. I'm like, what? Like, you're supposed to tell me not to gossip. All the other ones kind of make sense that I've read because I haven't read all 70.
Not that the source material ends up mattering much anyway. You go from like this morality tale to like a swashbuckling adventure where like a pirate man pulls a gun on a kid. Like that was part of this movie.
Right. It's
Yeah, the book Serendipity has almost nothing in common with...
Other than that, the look of the plesiosaur, is that what she's
I
supposed
guess.
to be? Like, I don't
Which
know.
are not dinosaurs, I'm pretty sure, y'all. So
Marine reptiles.
anyway, look it up, movie scientists. You got this wrong.
But okay. So yeah, if you want to look up these books, they're great for children ages 0 to about. Stephen Cosgrove, I guess he was the origin of this in the same way like Tolkien's Hobbit is like a story he was telling his kid. But it'd be like if The Hobbit was only like 3 pages long and just sort of ended there. And then they
it was like, careful about weird rings. Yeah. Don't pick up strange jewelry.
So if you like kind of, cozy fantasy, these are the books for you. But then, okay, so then it gets adapted. So we have a little, I don't know if y'all looked into this at all, but they bring up the character designer who, me just throwing myself out there to say some names that I'm not going to pronounce right.
You're gonna
Yoichi Katabi, I believe, who worked with Miyazaki, goes on to do Super Mario Brothers and Pokemon stuff. And you can kind of see that. That makes sense. And then Miyazaki, I guess he's a producer on this at this point, which is interesting because the movie becomes very environmentally themed, and like Nausicaa comes out 2 years later, which is like actually a real story about environmental stuff, not just like the dressing of it for like a kid's movie. But I don't know, did you all discover any of the backstory, or did you have like a bigger context? So you had this VHS, right? Were you discovering other things in this kind of category of anime, like this really young, kid-friendly anime, or was this like an outlier for you, Lisa?
I think the next big thing for me was Pokemon, and then nothing else mattered. So those are my 2 big Japanese imports early on. But yeah, I think this one stood out too, because I even noticed as a kid, like there are parts of the movie, like the way that they animate expressions or the way the characters move or talk to each other. It looked different than American cartoons, but I like didn't have the language to describe what was different about it, if that makes sense. Like as a little kid, I'm like, oh, this doesn't look like Aladdin or the Lion King or the way those animals move. There's like something more subtle, or maybe recognizing too, like their mouths move kind of out of sync sometimes, not realizing that this was in another language before. I thought like, oh, I mean, everything's from the States.
Right. There's all these little moments that bring back the confusion of childhood. There's a moment when the bird, Tommy has a coconut. The bird brings him a coconut.
You mean Bobby, our hero.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Bobby.
Memorable name, unlike Tommy.
Oh, you know what? I'm confusing this with Seabird.
Wait, did you say Seabird? Like with the seal?
Yeah,
that is the next VHS tape sitting next to this at my parents' house. That's so crazy.
That totally makes sense. Seabird comes out a couple years later. It's kind of a slightly deeper iteration on this because it actually wants to kind of address environmental themes in a way that this one sort of, they arrive at the island and that whole other storyline is gone. But yeah, Seabird was cool, right?
Was that also from Japan?
I don't think so. It doesn't feel dubbed in the same way in my memory. I have not obviously watched it in forever, but I feel like Seabird is very Americanized and almost falls in the camp of what becomes like Captain Planet and other like kind of adventure-driven eco-drama. And then Fern Gully, that's like the natural conclusion of all that, maybe.
The spiritual trilogy.
But yes. I feel like almost Seabird ripped this off a little bit. Anyway, Seabird's cool.
Look out for the sequel episode of our podcast about that.
Oh, I was making a point about the confusion of like dubbing. In the way the voice actors need to fill like every mouth movement. There's a point where the bird, what's the bird's name?
Pila Pila.
Yeah, Pila Pila brings Bobby a coconut. She starts to break away at it. And then she's like, hold on. And continues. And then gives it to him. It's like, did we need that extra beat of like her telling him, hold on, it's not ready quite yet. Okay, now it's ready.
Well, Bobby just like, motionlessly stares at it.
Yeah. It takes like an extra 2 seconds, but it really sticks with you. And then as an adult, you realize, oh, the voice actor just needed to say something because the mouth was moving there.
Right. I think of another moment where I think it's when Captain Smudge is going to show up and they have to like get the princess to safety and they instruct the turtle to take her away. And he's just like, yes. It used to crack me up as a little kid. I'm like, okay, whatever that take was.
I would actually say this movie's full of that stuff. And this is not exactly the same thing, but the amount of narration there is at the beginning of this movie that's like, Bobby was so alone out on the ice, freezing to death. Like, he was so sad. And I was like, I don't think we need this. But, like, as a kid, it meant nothing. I was like, this is just a beautifully woven tale for my ears only. But now I'm realizing that was probably because they were like, we lost an episode between.
Oh, okay,
like,
right.
So we just need to seamlessly, like, spackle this gap so that no child is like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Right. That might be why.
It's so disturbing to think that things like these are kind of the foundations of our understanding of storytelling. It's like, how broken. Like, I wish I could have just gone to, like, narrative art school from, like, kindergarten on. I would be a lot better at any type of, like, job I ever have, because things like this, they just mess you up because you think this is how a story is supposed to be told, right? Because you don't have the context of, like, actually it was 26 episodes reduced to an hour and a half. Actually, it's also dubbed. Actually, it's not really about anything, and it was just made to, like, pass the time on. In
the rich tradition of the Western, like, West taking anime and just, like, chopping it up and changing everything and being like, it's for American kids now. You're gonna love it.
And they did.
Yeah, we did. I thought it was great.
You're right, though, because there are parts of it that, I mean, now that I know that it was broken up into actual episodes, some of it makes more sense, like the pacing. Because as a little kid, when they do the whole, like, courtroom drama scene where Pila Pila, like, tried to leave the island without a permit, and it gets, like, arrested by the police. I was like, why is this part of the story? Yeah.
Paradise Island, where we will literally chain you to an iron ball with a chain of pure gold if you don't cooperate.
It's one of their values, along with politeness. I was amazed. I really wonder what the Japanese subtitles would have said watching it instead of the dub, because everybody is so polite, like, please and thank you, and oh, that would be delightful, and it's just, like, so painfully polite.
Right. There's no real, like, strong conflict to really, like, grasp onto. Not that I need that. Like, I don't know what I'm projecting onto this. Like, I don't need to like this as an adult, right? Do I need to like it?
Oh, yeah, you do, actually, so... Turn off the recording.
Okay, so here's a question. This is probably a stupid question, but we got time to fill. This brings up this idea of, for me, an idea. What is the value? What is the value of something like this, big picture? Like, is it trying to have an environmental message or anything in there? Or is it like a morality thing? Like, what's kind of the purpose of it? Is it just passing the time? Is it just like content?
That's a great question. I mean, I think probably the cut down and the English version was made in whole or in part because it was content.
Yeah.
Like, that makes sense to me as a reason why it was made. But I think the reason why, at least like why I loved it as a kid, I mean, I think a lot of it was the visual language more than like the content necessarily.
Yeah.
Of like, the character designs are actually pretty fun for the most part, I feel like. Like, I don't even know what they're called, but like a lot of the little guys that live on the island would have weird shapes and stuff.
Oh, right. Were they
There's just something
the
that's kind of...
Aquanauts? I don't remember. The crying little coconut men.
The crying guys. Like, rewatching it, I was just like, oh my god, like, I actually don't remember the plot at all, but I remember these snippets of visuals and like even the sound. And like the singing mountains that are like, oh shit, pirates coming, like, oh my god, but like there's something actually, even though I'm laughing about it, like watching it now, I was like, oh my god, like as a kid this probably was like a big deal for me, and like I could see that coming out as inspiration in a later thing just because it's such a specific but like very evocative visual. So there's a lot of stuff. It's just like firing a lot of your imagination.
Yeah. While
not stressing you out at all.
Yeah, I guess it's just made for a really young audience.
Yes, I think that is accurate.
Yeah, and I suppose the question comes up because in my mind I'm thinking of it in the category of a Siebert, which deals more with like poachers, like on an episode to episode basis. Like that's the constant conflict. And it's very specific and very kind of like grounded, even though Seabird is obviously not like a real version of a seal. But the world around Seabird kind of is. And that feels like so message heavy. And then even Nausicaa in its like metaphorical way is more environmentally driven. But that's all just stuff for an older audience. So this is really just, it's just for really little kids at the end of the day, I suppose.
Right. I think
But
for
the
me, it just
yeah.
was like inviting the curiosity of like, whoa, are there actually like sea monsters and creatures and stuff that are still out there? Like, what do I got to do to find one? Do I have to lose my parents at sea and trade them in for a sea monster? Because that might be cool.
Because I'll do it.
Are you
Then I'll
willing to
live
make
in
that
paradise.
sacrifice?
I will kill my
forever.
parents for a dragon.
Yeah, that's true. This does connect with that early fascination of like, yeah, what's off the edge of the map, like the old world maps with like beyond tier monsters, and also like Loch Ness monster lore. I don't know if you were really into that as a kid,
yeah.
but I loved those books. That captured the imagination.
Oh, they're out there.
Yeah, there's the photo.
Loch Ness. Serendipity. Oh my god.
It's all
Holy
coming
shit.
together.
It's real. This is a documentary film.
I almost
Would you
sent
like
you,
a live-
when I was considering different things to talk about, there's like a weird cartoon, maybe from the same time period, that was about Loch Ness monsters, but they had magical powers. Does that sound familiar?
Pirates
Ooh.
of Deep Water or Dark Water. Is
I
that
feel
what
like
it was?
called like
No, that's something else.
Secret of the Loch.
If you guys know what I'm talking about, though.
I do know what you're
DM
talking
me.
about. I'm trying not to latch onto it though. 'cause-
Yeah, Pirates of Dark Water. Okay. Anyway, I'm just saving that for later because
yeah, I'm sure we'll do that episode someday.
I would say that I went through a
informative.
big like Loch Ness phase, but the phase never stopped. So this was just like the content I craved and could get at the time.
Wait, so Lisa, was it a movie or a show that?
This one was a show, and I remember it was on a single VHS tape, but it did do the title cards for each episode. They'd be like 15 or 20 minutes each, but it was called Happiness, Secret of the Loch. I guess happiness is
okay.
like Ness, Nessie.
Sure.
Yeah, you get it. It's probably on YouTube somewhere. It was one of those like phantom memories that I was having. I'm like, I've got all of this like plesiosaurus lore back in my brain.
Totally. Yeah, this is from like over 10 years later. So the Loch Ness Monster is just sort of this evergreen concept because also we have, what's that movie? Water Horse? Do you
Yes.
remember that?
Yeah, that
the-
was cool.
The Christmas. Was it Christmas? Whatever. He gets a dragon though. He gets a Loch Ness baby.
Right. I like Happiness a lot.
I'm a fan.
She's got some jewelry.
Yeah, I've
Okay.
never heard of that show, but it's absolutely something I would have watched if I had been aware of it.
It's out
So
there
basically
somewhere.
like the awakening of the ancient sea monster only kind of understandable by like the childlike mind, right? Like the naive, uncorrupted mind can connect with these creatures. You can dress that up however you want, right? But Serendipity, it's not the first version of this, of course, but I feel like it's probably one of the earliest ones that set an example of like, look, we can sell this thing to kids and kids are going crazy for it. So anyway, a little bit, you guys want some production facts?
Yes.
Tell me more.
Lisa?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
How was this made?
Just some fun stuff I found with the voice actor. So the voice of Bobby, voiced by Cheryl Chase, who's Angelica Pickles from Rugrats. That's fun.
Wow.
Oh, now I hear it.
Yeah, I'm kind of maybe ruining, like this might be too much information in a way, but I thought that was fun.
Honestly,
Fun little
actually, like
detail.
I spent the entire time in agony because I was like, the guy who voices Captain Smudge, I know him, not
Right.
personally. Wouldn't that be crazy? But like, I was like, I have heard him in so much, and I didn't look it up, but I cannot figure out what it is.
Oh, I didn't come up with him. I do have a couple more voice actors though. He wasn't one, but the voice of Serendipity herself is Barbara Goodson, born August 16th, 1949. I don't know why I copy and pasted that part. Not really relevant. But she does the English dub voice for the main bad guy in Power Rangers, Empress Rita
Oh my god, hell yeah.
Repulsa. Is that
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, like
Oh.
she's repulsive.
Yeah.
That's
So,
fun.
You
There's
know,
that
you've
fact.
seen her.
All right, one more mind-boggling fact about voice acting here. Professor Abrahams. Who's that character?
Oh, he's one of the
I don't
weird,
remember.
like Fraggle Rock looking people on the island.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So that's voiced by Robert Schnellgrove, also known as Bob. He's best. I don't know. He's best known for voicing the Looney Tunes character Porky Pig in Tiny Toon Adventures, and also he's in Space Jam and Duck Dodgers. But I feel like Duck Dodgers was really old.
There must have been.
Did they bring it back?
They probably did at some point.
Anyway, well, that's some voice acting stuff. Yeah, I think that's the right response. Huh.
Wow, the guy who did Captain Smudge was the voice director.
Okay.
For Digimon, the original run of the Digimon series.
Digimon was so good
yeah,
too.
see this.
Digimon was so good.
I loved it. I liked that
God,
they could
I'm
actually
experiencing all the
talk
stuff
to
that I love.
you. You know, like Pokemon was neat because you already have like your creature companion, but this was cool because you could like talk to them and they can like keep transforming or revert back. Because I remember I was going to be devastated if Pikachu ever changed, like Ash's Pikachu.
Oh yeah,
Pikachu specifically.
Yeah, like a Digimon were just like, I'm a baby again.
Yep.
Wow, I never
Usually
thought to
because something
be.
bad happened.
I never even considered that Pikachu might evolve, but if I had thought about that, I would have been really scared.
There was a whole dramatic episode about
is
it in
there?
the first season. And
Okay.
I don't care that we've drifted so far off course of the topic.
No,
This
we're
is just a
talking-
little
we're talking
island
about
in the
monster
sea.
character
Yeah, let's
design.
see.
It's on
Yeah,
topic.
Ash has to make a tough. Well, honestly, I feel like Pikachu is like, no, I do not consent, and Ash
Yeah.
is like, okay. Eventually, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I think that's the arc generally of the story.
That sounds right.
I think this is all relevant because I think that this isn't like a topic specifically we've really delved into, like animal cartoon character relationships with.
Which is weird because it's one of my faves.
Yeah, well, we're getting here now, right? It's just really interesting to think about the way they evolve that type of character. Like you were saying, Lisa, it's like, oh, Pokemon's great, obviously, but Digimon, they talked. And that opens up a whole nother kind of engagement for like a kid. Which, I don't know, I wonder why Digimon doesn't have the legacy. I mean, it's probably a marketing thing, partly, like. But do you think the fact that they talked long term maybe made them harder to like keep with you as you grew up, and the way Pokemon can just be like iconic? Did Digimon have too much personality? I don't know.
Maybe it
I
did.
actually think it got too complicated because there's still a lot of Digimon stuff. Like, they're making it still. There's movies, like a ton of movies, shows, like video games still. And I don't keep up with any of them, so I really don't know. But I'm just aware that that's happening.
Right.
But I feel like the lore was more complicated.
Yeah.
Because they're in the digital world, not the real one. But sometimes they cross over and like crazy stuff happens. And it's like it's this whole like ensemble cast. Whereas Pokemon, you're still hanging out with the same people, I assume, because I haven't watched it for a long time. But that anime is still going, and it's Ash, and he's 10 years old. It's like literally nothing has changed. So I think the consistency just helps. And it's so easy to just roll over like new generations of kids who are getting into it.
Right. You can jump
And then
in
I
at
just
any
assume that
time.
Digimon.
Right.
Yeah, like, and there's like and then you have all this backlog of stuff if you wanted to go back and watch it. But
And the games, obviously, like, make it a lot more, give it a bigger life. Was there a Digimon game?
oh, tons. There's
sure,
tons. Yeah. And even Digimon World on the PlayStation 1 was a great game. I'm just projecting these vibes out to the universe to be like, if you know about that, it's so good. Except for that one, your Digimon would just die, and there was nothing you could do about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, great stuff. But I do think it was not like open to all audiences in the same way that Pokemon is.
Right.
That's very, very like all ages friendly.
Would you play a Serendipity game?
What would we
I need to
do?
know more.
Be very polite to each other. I'm imagining all the dialogue menus being like, would you like to do this or will it hurt somebody's feelings? I wouldn't want to be rude. That sounds delightful.
Right. It's like kind of it's in the category of like I feel like Sesame Street, the language was, I mean, this is dubbed, so obviously there's that, but Sesame Street did all this stuff with such naturalistic language, but it's the same kind of vibe, right? It's like, let's be nice. It's the 70s. Vietnam, not going to talk about that, but let's be nice
safe
here and
here.
now because who knows how much time we have left or something.
I am
But,
surprised
like,
there aren't toys, though. Like, every character is such a fun, like, round shape. I feel like that would have translated so easily to some, like, plastic bathtub toy or something, right? Like, maybe they're out there and they just didn't make it to the States, but I've never seen one.
What's little on top and big in the middle and pink all over? The answer to the riddle is my friend Serendipity, the pink dinosaur.
Serendipity-doo, serendipity-dee.
Wow, what a wonderful world we'd have if we all could be loving and caring, giving and sharing, like my friend Serendipity.
I am curious. I have brought up this movie before to people in the past, and nobody ever knows what I'm talking about. Most people don't know the books. They don't know anything. I'm like, the pink, like he said on the back of the books,
Right.
like that. No one has ever known what they're like what I'm talking about, and so I don't know the books. I feel like I recognized them right away, like as soon as I saw them. Just
Yeah.
all of it came flooding back. But I hadn't thought about them in a long time. Like, how popular were they? I don't know. And this, like, how big of a reach did it actually have? Like, I don't think this had a theatrical release. So
No, I can't imagine. I think it was just direct to
But
the
if they do a
VHS.
Yeah.
Fathom
They
event,
made 2
we're there.
copies.
Like,
We're all doing it.
Oh, wait. 4K re-release? It's interesting. I just think this was never intended to have that. But it does. Just the fact that they cut it out of a bunch of episodes of a TV show makes it feel like an afterthought. It's almost weirder that they aired the TV series like in France and Spain and different countries and not in the US.
Okay, so the book regarding kind of like the reach, Stephen Cosgrove released them self-published for a while because of that issue of like him wanting to keep the prices down. So, you know, like a traditional publisher is going to be like, we put out books that work on a mainstream bookshelf. This weird format, they're too narrow. We can't get it on the spine. Like that doesn't fit like our market or our vision for these. So he did it himself, but eventually they did get picked up. And I think he goes back, he re-edits some of them, and then they kind of market it to the kindergarten to 3rd grade level. And I think there might be versions of these out there that are hardcover or like look a little fancier. And these might just be the like kind of more indie press versions. But I've never seen whatever these theoretical other versions are.
Yeah, those are the ones that we had like as kids, the papery
Yeah.
ones.
Because these are all, they're like Price Stern Sloan, a Los Angeles publisher, but they're like still the Serendipity book imprint, which is Stephen Cosgrove. This is getting very technical, but it actually kind of does matter because how were we finding these? Were they in small independent bookstores or were they being like pushed at bigger bookstores? Who knows? I mean, maybe certain parents were like inclined to find certain.
It absolutely feels like something my mom would see and gravitate to specifically.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to ask her about it after this because I'm very curious.
Right, me
But I
too.
feel like these books manifested in our house on my bookshelf somehow. Like they just emerged into the world.
Totally. It made sense. The books themselves ride a weird line of, they almost feel like I said earlier, slightly like churchy books because they're so clean and sterile in that way. But they're also hippie stuff, which my parents were totally that. Like they lived in a van until like the day I was born, like driving around the country. This is pretty much true. And then it like this fit with the vibe of my parents. I'm like, oh, of course you have like weird kind of fantasy, like it's not that they're psychedelic, but they're odd, right? Because it's like
the
there are
art
all these
style
weird worlds.
reminds me of like the animated Hobbit movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, like they all kind of fit in that 70s fantasy.
right. I was thinking of
feeling that,
The
Lisa?
Last Unicorn
Yeah.
and stuff like that, too.
Yes,
Oh,
The Last
totally.
Unicorn, it reminds me
Got
of
that
a lot.
same, like, really lashy, sad-looking eyeball.
I was honestly surprised at first. I was like, oh, did Topcraft like make this?
Yeah.
No, but like I was like, they gotta had some like animators in common or something because the crossover is too significant.
Definitely.
There is have we, I mean, maybe you two have seen this pop up, like the nostalgia for like the Last Unicorn stuff, like the way those movies feel Like, has that come back anywhere? Like that idea, like you were saying, Lisa, like the eye of serendipity, like this emotional connection, this
Eye of
deep.
Sauron.
I know it sounds so creepy, but like the deep resonance of like the watery softness of these stories. Like, where is that? Is it just too whimsical to like have any weight in like the modern storytelling world? Like, do you see this stuff?
Yeah. Not really. You're right. I mean, maybe it just feels so of the time.
But
Right.
people love it. So why didn't it come back? Why isn't it back? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe because
Actually,
back in the
I'll go
70s,
out-
somebody went on Twitter and was like, "Oh, I hate this Cal Arts. I mean, I hate this animation style with the sad eyes." It's but you're right.
This is
It didn't
canceled.
have like a lot of lasting power. I don't know. Did different animation studios take over the market and everybody else like
I
was
think
done
it's-
the
I guess
same
it's just
year?
that
I don't
simple.
know.
Like a lot of it's a smaller subsection than maybe you would think of kids that were into this stuff. Like I also like me and my sister grew up watching all the old like My Little Pony cartoons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like so painfully 80s and so great and wonderful. But like in the grand scheme of things, we can't have made up like this I mean, people knew about My Little Pony, but it wasn't like Harry Potter where like everybody was
Yeah.
all in. I assume. I don't know. I was very young at the time that was popping off. But I was going to say, actually, the dragons in Raya and the Last Dragon, one of those those really recent Disney movies,
Yeah.
Yes.
were very My Little Pony energy to
can
me.
see that.
Right.
So much, to the point that I was just like, whoa, like if I go to a Target right now, is there going to be a wall of just like, you could buy whatever colorful dragon you want with like different hair. Like it felt like that so much.
Right.
And there were times in the 2000s, I don't know if you all remember this, I was old enough at that point to be like, this is not as cool as the OG stuff. But I think it was the early 2000s when they started making tall, skinny My Little Ponies instead of like the fat chunkers that they used to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, this sucks. I don't want this. I'm 12. Like, that's so lame.
This is giving
Otherwise
me
I
a
would've been all in.
complex. We need to stop. Like
But I think they tried. Like, people tried to make it happen, and then it didn't. It just wasn't connecting. And then they had the My Little Pony cartoon. I don't know if it's still going or not, but you know,
not sure.
the Brony one.
Right.
We all know that. We know
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I imagine it still
But that
is.
was like a very Flash animation vibe,
Right.
and that felt like they were deliberately going very far away from that original inspiration and targeting it to kids that like grew up with the internet.
Right.
So I think it's just like we just skipped right past that and just moved on to another visual era because people like us are nostalgic for that, but we're not necessarily the ones making children's content for young children now. And the people who are making that are factoring in other decisions into like what appeals to kids now.
Right.
I'm glad you thought
In
of
this essay, I
Raya
will.
the Last Dragon though, because I was thinking the same thing. Like if that had come out when I was a kid and I'm like collecting toys, I would be all over that. Like I'd have a dragon in every color. That would be so cool.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the closest thing
It
that
really-
like gave me that feeling again.
And they
was,
have the
like,
big eyes.
Yeah.
The big eyes, lashy eyes, and like 80s like hair.
Yeah.
It really had that.
Right. It's an interesting use of like these like little nostalgia beats. I feel like Turning Red does a similar thing with like a different aesthetic or like different memories of childhood in the way it uses kind of like giant monsters and the kids and the stuff all the kids are into. Because it's like a modern story, very modern, but it's pulling these pieces of the past. Like, Raya is the great example of like, oh, you want to see your 80s, you want to feel the 80s My Little Pony? Here it is. But it's like a whole new, you only know it if you know it.
Yeah,
like you
there's
only
nothing
get the
else
reference.
to, yeah. I think Turning Red did it in a great way because it's
Yeah.
subtle, but it literally is like, do you remember growing up watching Sailor Moon on like,
Right.
you know, TV in like the late 90s, early 2000s? I'm like, hell yeah, I do. But they don't talk about that. It's just all aesthetic references. I feel like that's what you're going to get.
Oh
is
yeah,
stuff
it
like
was
that.
so real too. Like I was surprised when there were people being like, "I don't know, I didn't care for it. Didn't feel relatable." And I'm like, "Really? You didn't draw a picture of the boy at the convenience store you like, and then roll under your bed and draw more pictures of them kissing?" Like,
To hide from your... We have nothing in common.
oh my gosh.
That is, yeah. See that's the energy I'm talking about. Like I would draw characters from these books, and you would start with the eye. You would start with like the thing you can look at because you're like, I'm drawing my friend. Right? Like I have this weird, I feel like I've talked about this on the show, but like the Care Bears have like this weird emotional place in my mind where at some point I must have really believed they were my friends.
Yes.
Because
they were.
Yeah. And I would get sad if like the movie ended or something like that. Like like the books, they don't kind of implant in your brain in the same way like a cartoon feature does. Like these books are very nostalgic and sentimental, and when I look at them, it makes me, emotional. But the cartoon characters like come to life in a certain way. Like when I look at the Serendipity cartoon, like when Lisa's like, "Here's the thing on YouTube. It looks like shit, but like here's where you can watch it." I'm like, I can see how I would have really got emotionally connected to this beautiful. Like as soon as Serendipity comes out of that egg and the little like fin touches down.
And the
it's
eyes
just so
cool.
Yeah.
The graceful
like the type of
tail
kid that...
emerging from the egg. We love it.
She's everything. She's here to save it.
So yeah, they paint the picture of her as this. So all right, let's get into the story a little bit here. Well, we'll go back to Bobby's like previous life and the death of his parents and all that later. But like let's talk about Serendipity.
Is Bobby on the Titanic? Oh no.
Yeah. So Serendipity is presented to us as not like necessarily a toy we want to buy, but like a fantastic idea in a place we want to like exist in, right? Like that's what this is trying to do to us.
It's extreme child escapism.
Yeah, and she's truly pure, and we know that because like the kind of Greek chorus. What are the little rocky people? The little like
the
talking...
Aquanauts. Or the rocks.
Yeah, is that what they're called?
The little guys were the Aquanauts,
right, okay.
But then there are like the big
like
stones. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the Easter Island head guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they speak the prophecy. They're like, oh, what did they say? I actually wrote it down.
It's in rhyme.
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
right.
elegant.
She's like the literal chosen one. It's so intense.
The child of Neptune, the prophecies have sworn, defender of the waves, protector of the sea. She will be named Serendipity. That kind of scared me. I'm like, that would have been scary to me.
Why was she named Serendipity? What's the payoff also? Does she actually save them?
Oh.
The answer is no. Honest, the answer is a big no. Bobby saves them, generally speaking, from the pirate end credits, and then the princess is like, "Great job, you're a hero."
Right. Serendipity kind of like pulled a Gandalf and like dipped out partway through.
Serendipity does nothing.
Right. So it's like, if you're telling this story, what do you try to do? Or like, shouldn't the kid be the hero? Like that does make sense, right? Like if you're telling a story, the human has to save the day, and so your fantastical animal creature is more of a trickster god, like in the Gandalf form, right?
Yes.
What else could they be?
A therapist. She could be kind of a therapist. Just like, I don't know. I'm your mom now.
Oh, that's true.
Surrogate mother.
So the island has been saddened, right? Because we haven't talked about Princess Laura, the most magical of all names.
That's so true. And she's beautiful.
Yeah.
I feel like my sister and I both were like very enchanted by her character design, which now I'm like not as into it. It's not bad, but for some reason we're like, this is the height of elegance.
Well, how did you feel about the reveal where like she doesn't speak and everybody has to like speak for her or cry on her behalf so she doesn't have to deal with it, but then later she just like plain out talks, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You like made everybody do this for you the whole time.
To be fair though, I wish I could do that. I wish I didn't have to speak to people unless I just happen to feel like it.
Like you can even be in the same room as them, but
I delegate all of my crying and speaking to others.
Mm-hmm. So these are things that all this stuff is not in the book at all, right? Like, to be clear, there are no like sympathetic Aquanauts that cry for like their mermaid princess.
No, it's basically like a Serendipity's quest to find herself in a very Fable-esque way, the way the rest of the books are.
Yeah.
And actually, that one is way more overt about the keep the earth clean type messaging.
Right.
Because they're just like, we're swimming along, trying to find myself, and then the water's all nasty and gross. So I dump it back on the land, owned, and because it's like, oh, I bet they'll think twice before they put garbage in the sea again. And I was like, nope, they sure didn't. 2022, and that's it. And then I guess what she finds out what she is brave.
Yeah.
And that's what she is. Which
Okay.
is a little bit of a cop-out. I'm going to say it. Stephen Cosgrove, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I was hoping for, like, taxonomic nomenclature.
So we get to talk about these secondary characters because they're all pretty, like, delightful, I guess, for what they are. We've talked about, very briefly, Priya, who's, like, kind of the...
Excuse me, it's Pila Pila.
Pila?
It's Pita Pita in the Japanese version.
Give me one name to latch onto here.
It's Pila Pila.
Pila, okay.
I'm sorry.
So this is our, like, comedic sidekick, kind of, and also, like, gate like, world explainer.
Yeah.
A little bit.
This one is kind of the trickster god because it's just like, let me out of my cage. Like, come join with me on this adventure.
Yeah.
Like, and then she doesn't really serve that significant of a purpose. She's kind of, like the lovable screw up.
Yeah.
Because she also incites the incident where she gets thrown in jail and then she's like, I'm out of here. Bye. Like, I hate everybody here except for you two. See you later. I'm gone. And then she gets tired because she has a solid gold chain attached to her leg and has to, like, land on the pirate's boat. And it's a whole thing.
And
Yeah.
they really could have just let her go, right? Like, nobody on the island seems to really like her. They're like, okay, whatever, bye. But then Serendipity, in her act of mercy, goes to rescue her from the hands of Captain Smudge. I mean, she didn't have to do it, but she did, so...
One of my favorite parts in this movie, I think, is when Pila Pila's on trial and they're like, okay, Serendipity and Bobby, have you ever seen her not here? And they're like,
They just look
Yeah.
at each other.
like, yeah. And they're just like, I'm sorry, we were under oath. I'm sorry, we were under oath. It's like an actual lie. They're just like, we can't lie. This is sacred.
Serendipity was born 2 days ago, but is, like, very burdened by the consequences of the law.
Serendipity, I swore on a Bible. Like, what do you want me to do? Blaspheme?
All right. Well, speaking of kind of the law and the rule of the land, we have Chief Advisor Lord Winston.
That's the
dolphin.
The spectacled dolphin.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Dolphin with glasses. That he probably stole off of a human he drowned at some point.
He has almost the biggest character arc in the film. So we start off meeting him. We get the flashback of how, well, we're introduced to him standing against Princess Laura's decree that this human boy will not live on this island because she has her reasons, which we'll find out later. And then Lord Winston leaves his post.
He resigns.
Okay.
Very politely.
Yeah.
Again, but he's like, I
And
can't
nobody threw him in
go
jail.
forward with this. Goodbye.
I do like, if my advice is going to be disrespected like this, then I guess I quit. I was like, I didn't realize she had to do everything that you told her to do.
That's true. When you put it that way. He has some things to learn about how to
Don't we
advise
all?
and not just demand.
How to be more polite.
All right. So, and now Bobby, in his confused state, is sent away from the island. And we learn later that this is all because there's a tragic backstory to Princess Laura.
Go on.
What happened? I don't remember. Her parents weren't her parents killed?
I don't remember either, I'll be honest with you.
Oh shit, that's why you
Yeah,
said
it's
that.
not ringing a
This is
bell.
what
I
happened.
knew that they
just
were
like-
anti-people.
I don't know. I just
Okay,
figured
it's
it
all
was
just
because
a
of like
hazy-
pirates and stuff, or like dudes like Captain Smudge showing up and destroying the environment.
Yeah, it's like they don't like people.
I think she has a thing against humans, so
Yes,
that's,
she
right?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Because they're like, no humans here, thanks.
right. I think there's a death in the family, maybe. I don't know. Okay. Now, I guess I have a thing for sharks. We have our friend Brenda the shark here over in the corner of the studio. But I like the shark
Hey,
guards.
everybody.
The little grouping of shark. I guess they're guards. Are they like the royal guards?
They're literally the police. Like, they're
Yeah.
just like, I'm gonna chomp this mother. Like, they're just cops.
I like them. That's all I have to say about this. I think I've already made all my big points about this, and right now we're just sort of like
I like
treading
that.
water
I
through
like
the
that.
story here. All right, so like, is there like a particular scene in this movie that really stands out as the thing that we latch onto as people? Like, see, I
No.
This wasn't.
Shaking your head no.
I was just curious if maybe Lisa had a very particular moment. Like, is there a thing when you think about this movie that appears to you in your mind, and you're like, oh, let's like relive that. Let's go on a podcast
Right.
and like relive this.
Other than like her graceful emerging from the egg, I think it's pretty cool when she's
Yeah.
like facing
Iconic.
off with Captain Smudge, and she goes back to help him actually because he falls off the boat after she's tipped it over. She stations the boat back where it should be and then takes him and throws him back on board. And I was like, oh, that was very merciful. She didn't have to do that. Also, it's just funny with the wacky sound effects where it's like grab and throw, and it's like the banana
Right.
peel slip sound when he falls back on there. Yeah. I also remember too, like right before she goes underwater to like go underneath the boat and tip it over, as a little kid, I'd be like, wow, I wonder if I can hold my breath as long as Serendipity, and I like watch it and try to do it and fail every time. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not a sea monster. I don't have what it takes.
Many children died in the attempt.
This idea of mercy that keeps coming up, it's such a like fantasy trope, like this sort of. It's funny that this is like an anime, because when you talk about the story, it doesn't feel anime-ish. It almost feels like kind of British in its like telling of like, oh, we have a morality tale about a character who shows mercy on another character, and then there's these like royal figures. It's like the structure of it just feels like a lot more Western, which is it's weird. Like I always wondered watching this if it was like designed to be for a Western audience. I don't know.
Well, I have to imagine that. I mean, I genuinely wonder, like, what is the motivation of these characters in the original series? Because
Yeah.
it's probably not a one-to-one comparison, and it probably, like, this cut, the film cut, is heavily Westernized. It has to be.
Right.
Because it's just, like, there's no actual conflict. It's just, like, the pirate wants treasure, and that's so bad. Like, what's so bad about that? I mean, I get it. Like, you can extrapolate that
Just
to be
general
like,
greed.
he's pillaging, whatever, like, destroying. But it's like, none of that is addressed in any way. They're just like, not this guy. Nope. No thanks. And I guess he's, like, rowdy and he has a gun. So it's like, yeah, he's the bad guy. But there's no content to it. There's nothing, like, deeper than that. But I think in the series, you brought this up, Ira, maybe before we started recording, but that he's trying to get Tear of the Mermaid is what it
Yeah.
says on the Wikipedia page.
Oh,
which is
I
not
don't
something that's
remember
mentioned
that at all.
in this movie, like in the English version. So I have to wonder. It makes it sound like the mermaid is in direct danger potentially, which would make a lot more sense. Where they're like, we got to get her out of here. Because in this one, it's just like, he's like, oh, gold. Like, this island must have a lot of gold. I'm going to go
Oh,
there.
he
And they're
doesn't
like,
even
"Get the
know she
mermaid out of here."
exists, right? Like, he
Yeah,
doesn't
like,
even
I don't know if
mention
he
a
ever
mermaid.
finds out about her. They're at the end, he's like trapped in a sack, and they're like, we should drown him. There's a bunch of bloodthirsty people. Pila's like, throw this guy in the lagoon, like, take care of it.
So we're going to just have to hope that there's a lot more to this story than what we're seeing.
I
This
think there must
VHS
be.
rip.
And there's like a bunch of characters listed on the Wikipedia page for this that I don't think show up in this. Like crabs. A crab couple.
Right, or who
And
is,
an eel
there's a
character.
fruit spirit. I don't know who that is. I remember the singing fruit in like the cool little montage, but yeah, I wonder even with if they're encased episodes that we've seen, I wonder even if they're cut down from that. Like, are there parts of the single episode
Oh.
that we haven't seen? Was there more to the courtroom drama than we got to see? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like probably there was. Like probably they manufactured some of the plot turns in this.
Right.
By just wholly exercising. Because it's 26 episodes.
Yeah.
Like this could have been made up out of way fewer episodes than that. I don't know. I'm not going to put a number on it because I'm not confident. But there's probably, there's a lot of stuff that was just wholesale dropped. They could have easily just been like, here's a shot that makes sense here. Whoop.
So what we should acknowledge here is that, we like the aesthetic and the art, but actually this is just a masterfully edited project. Like this VHS tape you got, well, who edited that together? That's the person we should be talking about.
Right.
Because they pulled something completely new out of something that already existed, as far as we know. This is not the serendipity of the books. It's not the serendipity of the original. It exists solely on the 2 copies of this VHS.
The 2 copies that
Right.
exist, mine and Lisa.
I wonder how many people owned this, like I did, or if they did rent it at Blockbuster. Because I was looking at all the comments, and people were saying, "Oh yeah, I was like constantly renting this until it broke." And I thought, it was at our house one day because my parents bought it. So I wonder what the distribution was like in the States.
Yeah, I don't know. We got into that very lightly with Akira and how a whole production line was built around getting Akira to the United States for the first time. It was a big push. It was like the title card that comes up, I can't remember now, that comes up in front of Akira was designed to like market this movie to America. And probably on a much smaller level, I bet this version of Serendipity kind of like had the same fate. It's like, all right, we have this great story. It's adapted in a way from an iconic American literary character. And we're just going to sell it back to you as like this kind of 80s VHS tape version, which is cool and should be done more.
Should it?
I don't know.
I
Lisa,
wonder
would
if
you
we'll
make
ever
new
be in
boxes?
that position again, because there are so many, like, you go on a streaming service and it's got every single episode from every single season of something. So I wonder if it'll be like a media scarcity thing ever. I mean, we're already seeing like it's good to have physical media because sometimes they pull something from a streaming site and it's like, oh, that was the only place I could watch it.
Oh, yeah, totally. I feel like the lost artifact idea still exists, even though theoretically everything could be available, but like companies will not allow for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's actually really hard. Well, like I've been wanting to watch The Brave Little Toaster forever. That would have been a great cartoon feelings
That was
episode.
like probably going to be our first episode almost.
Yeah, we
We're
talked
like, we
about
can't go
it.
there already.
That movie has been shadow banned from existence. Like Disney will not acknowledge it. You can get the sequels, like the garbagey. Well, I don't think I've even seen them, but like the straight
whatever.
to. Yeah. Like the original, nowhere. Can't buy it. Can't stream it.
So
doesn't
weird.
exist, and it's utterly bizarre and very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Disney, what the actual hell? I'm gonna tweet him.
Hold on, we're going to pause
Wait, is
for a
Twitter
minute here.
still there?
Hashtag free toaster.
Just barely.
Yeah, like
just hang it.
my last tweet, bring back Brave Little Toaster. But it's interesting how I'm sure there's a rip of it somewhere, but like it's utterly bizarre to me that movie's just memory hold.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, we'll just keep refreshing the page. Maybe they'll get back to you.
I'm gonna tweet him.
All right. Now Serendipity, the VHS construct, we know it does have a fandom, and has a fandom that extends just enough to give the film a single piece of fan fiction, as far as I found. And I'd like to share some of that fan fiction with you right now. Lisa, would you like to hear about the sequel to Serendipity?
Oh, yes. I didn't know if it was going to be a sequel or like a weird slash fic with like Winston the dolphin.
Oh God.
Nope. This is sold as a sequel. Sold as in typed into a Word doc and then posted on fanfiction.net.
Where I bought it for $1 million.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to read. I'll read some of the dialogue. It's quite darker. So, all was darkness, all was blackness, except for one lone figure on the floor, just lying there quietly. He was a dragon of the same kind as Serendipity, and his name was Amagomni.
What?
You see, Amagomni, the all-powerful, was a minor god. Yes, you heard me right. The world was full of minor gods, and Amagomni was one of them.
I thought it was gonna be like, I don't know, what's another word like serendipity? Like epiphany.
Well, the story goes on to later say that omnigomny is not a word that can be pronounced by humans. It's one of those type of words.
That seems right to me based
But I
on
feel
your
like I nailed it.
pronunciation.
That's so
Is
weird.
he dead?
And Lisa, I bring this up mostly because you said you take writing prompts, so I feel like I need
Ooh,
to.
here we
I mean,
go.
we've asked a lot of you already, but if you want to draw omnigomny,
Yeah, what
You,
color
I,
are
and
you
Caitlin
already
would really
imagining? I'm
appreciate.
feeling like, let's do something opposite of serendipity. So it's don't steal my OC. It's like green with pink spikes.
And it's skinny. It's
All
not
right.
luscious and beautiful.
So we have this kind of like inverted, like demonic version, I guess, of serendipity. If serendipity is merciful, what's the opposite of merciful?
Vengeful. Cruel. Cruel.
Cruella.
So you'll be
He's like a serial killer, and he's probably killing all the creatures on Paradise Island.
So you'll be glad to know that, and the author points this out within the story, so he's kind of like talking to the audience. In the first couple paragraphs, all our familiar friends don't return, but he says, don't worry, in the next chapter, all the characters we know will be back. And sure enough, Captain Smudge, Bobby, and Serendipity herself return to the story. And this picks up very soon after the end of the film. And now it's Princess Laura's birthday. And like, what would you get a mermaid for her birthday if that was like a...
Legs.
Legs.
Oh. Is that a mean gift or is that a nice gift?
I would assume it's nice. Options.
Or it could be
was
passive
thinking it was a nice
aggressive, I
thing.
guess. It's just like,
That's
hey,
true. It can
Yeah,
be
that's-
incredibly rude.
Also,
Sorry.
like, are they severed legs just sort of as like
Yes.
a gift to the gods, or are they like legs you could put on?
Legs you could put on.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to give her something practical.
All right. Yeah.
It's
'Cause
literally the
up there on
whole
land.
story in The Little Mermaid. It's literally the whole thing.
Yeah, but that's
I don't
just
feel like
one
I'm saying
mermaid's
anything
example. Like, I feel like the
radical.
other ones were content. Okay, so you know, I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but I do want to hit some big points here with this. So they find a pearl. Bobby finds a pearl for Princess Laura. Captain Smudge comes back. Omnigomny steals Serendipity away and brings her to his dark lair after Serendipity once again iconically shows Captain Smudge some mercy, which is like what
How
we
did she
like
do
to
it this
see.
time? She like had him like execution style, like gun to the back of his head, and then she was like, "I'm gonna let you go."
I think it's just like I feel like a lot of Serendipity is just her sort of explaining how she feels about a situation, and that sort of clears it up. Like
Yes.
she's like, they're good. We should be nice to
Just
them.
don't do it. Like, okay.
just words of kindness, or it's a warning shot up in the air. Like, next time.
Does she and the other guy like hook up? 'Cause
Well,
I feel like
we'll
they're
find out. So now they're in Omnigomny's dark lair, right? And Omnigomny first needed to get a sense that Serendipity was as pure as he always hoped she'd be. Because
Wow, I'm
guess
turning
what?
this off. This is not okay. Actually, I know exactly where this is going.
Do you? Because so Omnigomny created the egg and put Serendipity in it and sent her to the shore that
Why?
we meet at the beginning of the film to test her purity.
Why though?
Because Omnigomny wants her to return with him to the utopia he was banished from.
I knew it.
I mean, it'd be cool if there was like a dark version of Serendipity that has to like challenge her sense of goodness, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like
Kismet.
does
The dark
Godzilla
lair.
what's Godzilla's back bringing it all back around?
Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
Is that his evil incarnation or is that just
Isn't
his
it?
like automaton version?
I think
of
it depends on the movie.
Yeah, because even
Oh,
then there
that's
are
a good
like a
point.
couple iterations of it. I think in the beginning it's like, oh, cool, we want something that can like fight him or match him in power. We need to prove that humans are still on the map somewhere.
Oh, right.
Then it is evil. I don't know. And then there are other ones
But
that like
King Ghidorah
totally
is, like,
nuke it.
I think
Yeah.
the three-headed dragon guy is the one that's like they did this
Oh,
in
okay,
the new
that's a
one,
good
but even
point.
in the
Yeah.
old movies, it's like, oh, he's an alien. Like Godzilla's from Earth.
Right.
Right.
This guy's like from a other planet, and he's like super evil.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so Godzilla ends up being like the Earth hero.
Right. It's a lot like the way Omnigomny is kind of like from this
Yeah.
alternate like layer of existence, right? All right, I just need
Did
to read.
Stephen Cosgrove write this?
I need to read this end. Okay, so once Omnigamni
It's his name
reveals
spelled like
that-
as an anagram or something. It's like the same letters but different.
Cosgrove.
So this story is about 5 chapters long, and I feel like the author did a lot of reading between chapters as he was working on it, because at the end, Omnigamni, has tested Serendipity's purity and is like, you're coming with me to Utopia. But Captain Smudge shows up to save the day because Serendipity had countless times shown him mercy, right? Captain Smudge says to Omnigamni, I once read this play called Madame Butterfly. In it, the man has a relationship with an Asian woman, but he isn't really in love with her. And he goes on to describe in about 8 sentences the whole plot of Madame Butterfly. And of course, Omnigamni's like, what are you getting at, you old man?
Leave, please.
Captain Smudge smiles mysteriously, and he says, if you read the play, you would find out.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like, did you have to read this for school and now you're
Wait,
just
and
sort
that's
of
how
like throwing
that's
this in
how
here?
it ends?
No, but the lesson for Omnigamni is that this illiterate creature, the theme of the story is what? Revenge or
Reading
something?
is cool.
Whatever happens, last sentence of the story. What happened next shocked the entire crowd. Captain Smudge pulled out a gun from his pocket and shot Omnigamni in the head, scoring him right in the middle of the temple.
Oh my gosh.
That's the last sentence?
That's it.
Yes.
Cut to black.
Yes, we love to see it.
Wow, that was all worth it.
I mean,
Like, can you just
not,
feel this
not
writer
dissimilar
growing?
to the last
You know,
time,
this-
because he pulled a gun on Bobby at the end of the movie. I was like, oh.
Oh my god.
Right. Is there
That's
also a
foreshadowing.
scene?
Chekhov's Smudge's gun.
So is there a scene in the movie? I'm more familiar with his fan fiction now, but Captain Smudge in the fanfic points out that he shot a flower. Does that happen in the movie? He puts a gun on a flower and blows it up.
Maybe?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I mean,
I don't remember that.
all right. Maybe that's a lost scene. From,
Probably
Scroll
one of
the
the
playhead
6
back.
episodes.
yeah. So clearly, Serendipity inspired 2 artists in the world. This weirdo and Lisa, who went on to grow up and draw all kinds of monsters. None of them.
Can we just
Get
talk
shot in the
about for
temple.
1 minute the possibility that Lisa wrote that fanfic?
Oh, I mean, I wasn't making
Busted.
fun of
Suddenly
it. I
my
feel like I
screen
was.
just goes dark.
There's a virus on my computer.
This is to promote my new book tour. No. Oh my gosh. That would be so funny.
Serendipity 2, look for it
That would
in
be
theaters.
amazing. We would stand up and applaud if that was like the master plan.
There is probably some like old Sonic the Hedgehog or Inuyasha fan fiction I wrote out there somewhere. So shout out to
Yeah.
Don't read any of that
that. No.
on our Sonic the Hedgehog or Inuyasha episode.
Oh my gosh.
Or do read it. It depends.
Ugh.
So, in wrapping up here, Lisa, have you ever? The big question here is: have you ever drawn Serendipity?
I have.
And do you plan to?
I've got one that
you
I
have?
can share with you guys sometime. Maybe when the episode comes out. Whoa. That would be cool.
Hell yeah!
But yeah, I
my
threw
God,
it
I
out
wasn't
there because I
expecting
wanted to see if anybody else remembered it, and the response was kind of limited. So I'm glad you guys knew what I was talking
People
about.
don't know about Serendipity.
I don't know
Hell
what
yeah,
it
we
is.
People
But-
need to know.
Yeah, I feel like it's coming back. I feel like there's going to be kind of a Disney live action remake of this pretty soon.
Ooh, I
How
mean,
was
if they
the
can
water
do
horse?
if they can do Pete's Dragon, then maybe.
Oh yeah, ooh, that would be moody. Man, Pete's Dragon's good too.
Pete's Dragon Serendipity crossover.
Lovers to enemies.
There's a lot of good fan fiction that's. I have something
our emotions.
important to say. It's a quote from original author Stephen Cosgrove.
Oh, okay. I love a quote.
I don't know what it is.
Okay, loving it
Oh.
us.
I found it. So this is the moral of the Serendipity book, the original book. If you ever throw your garbage in the ocean, lake, or sea, you better start rowing, for there will be serendipity.
Watch
End
your
of episode.
back. That's intense.
Serendipity is going to kill you.
Well, that's all for now. Lisa, thanks for joining us today. Why don't you tell the fine folks out there where they can find you and what you've got going on?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad that somebody else remembers this movie, the books, everything. The pink dinosaur is within all of us. But if you like pink dinosaurs or other creatures, I like to draw a bunch of different giant monsters and kaiju and dragons, and I post them all on my Twitter and Instagram, which is at Lisa Naffziger. And in the future, or I'm currently working on a book, but maybe a couple years from now, you can see a graphic novel I'm working on about a little girl who spends her summer vacation interviewing different cryptids and urban legends across the United States. It'll be pretty cool.
Dope.
Gotta get drawing.
Back to work. Okay, and you can check out our episode archive and other facts about us at cartoonfeelings.com. Tweet at us or join us on Instagram. Both of those are at Feeling Cartoons. And special thanks to our producer, Josh Romeo.
Thanks, Josh. And if you're enjoying the podcast, stop right now and go back to the beginning of this episode and please re-listen to that part where we're like, please leave us a review or send us an email at cartoonfeelingspodcast@gmail.com, especially if you've seen this film and you'd like to discuss it, or if you have any thoughts on Godzilla, the 1998 one, or other, and share us with your friends. And maybe check out our Patreon. Thank you. $1, please. Alms. Goodbye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.